do right here is go back. Way back. Back into time.
We can rebuild him. We have the technology.
Celebrating 20 years of New England Championship Wrestling. This is the Regeneration Podcast.
And now, here are your hosts, Sheldon Goldberg, Joe Matarazzo, and Kevin Castro.
Welcome, everyone, to another week of the Regeneration Podcast. Sheldon Goldberg here, along with my co-host, Joe Matarazzo. Hi, Joe.
Hello.
And Kevin Castro.
Hey there.
How's everybody doing?
Not bad. How about you, Kev? How you doing?
Yep, doing good.
All right, well, I am doing just fine here. We are winding down our review of all the videos in the NECW 20th Anniversary Collection. We've got 2 more this week and 2 more next week, and that's it. So This week we are going to be reviewing from April 21st, 2001, a match between the Prototype, a.k.a. you know him better as John Cena, taking on the future Frankie Kazarian. And from there we're going to head to September 6th of 2014, and the MAsshole Mike McCarthy defending the NECW Television Championship against Todo Loco in a 2 out of 3 falls match. That from Bash 14, September 6th, 2014. We've got a bonus match for you this week. Yes, we do, and it's a barn burner of a bonus match. We're going to be seeing Die Hard Eddie Edwards from April 26, 2008, taking on the Golden Greek Elektra Arion, 2 stalwarts in New England Championship Wrestling in a classic battle, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later, and much more. So, with that, let's get to our first match. John Cena, the Prototype, versus the future Frankie Kazarian from April 21st, 2001. Let me start by telling you the story behind this match. We talked last week about a good friend of ours who has been involved in NECW on a number of levels over the years, Strangler Steve King. Steve King has been an announcer, a ring announcer, a TV announcer for NECW. He's wrestled for NECW. And Steve, who had been living in the western part of the country, was friends with Frankie Kazarian, who he trained with when Kazarian started training with the late Walter Killer Kowalski. So he got wind that John Cena was coming to the Boston area because he's from Newbury, Massachusetts. He was getting his stuff to move from Los Angeles to Louisville, Kentucky to start up at Ohio Valley Wrestling. And his family had never seen him wrestle. So as it happened, the weekend that he was going to be out here, we had a show at Good Time Emporium. And I was asked if we would book Cena and Kazarian. And originally, they wanted to work separately. They had been tag team partners in the UPW promotion in LA. UPW, Ultimate Pro Wrestling, was at one point a developmental territory for the WWF, the then WWF. So I was asked to book them both in a match, and I said, instead of having them work separate matches, since they're so familiar with each other, why don't they work with each other? So that was the arrangement that was made. I got an email from John Cena thanking me for booking him. He promised me that it would be a great match and that he looked forward to meeting me and looked forward to working for the company. So very gentlemanlike of John Cena, promising me that it would be a good match and that he wouldn't stink out the joint. To make sure of that, what happened from there is his father, John Cena Sr., contacted me and asked if he could buy a block of tickets for the family and friends of John to actually see him wrestle because they had never seen him wrestle before. So they ended up buying about 80 tickets.
Wow.
So the place was well stocked with Cena friends and family members. And that is the lead-in to this matchup. So we're going to start with Joe because, neither one of you were there at this time. So let's start with you, Joe. Let's get your impressions of the match.
Makes a lot of sense now why the crowd was so hot.
Right.
If you stuffed it with that many people with his family. But I'll tell you what, it was amazing right from the get-go when Cena came out with the blonde hair, and of course I remember him back then. When he was the prototype, and you saw him in the magazines and everything. They was starting to get a lot of press out there, and he comes out to Quiet Riot, Bang Your Head. That was absolutely awesome when I saw him come out to that. I was like, this is amazing, and it was so funny to see him in boots and tights. Mm-hmm. You're so used to seeing him in the jorts and his pumps, sneakers, and everything. So it was kind of cool to see him. Man, you could see the charisma coming off of him right from the get-go. This kid just had it. You knew it. How could you not know it? And then to see Frankie, you know what? Frankie Kazarian hasn't missed a beat. Not a beat. He can still go. He still does the same moves. What was amazing for me to watch, and I sat there and I was wondering, this is exactly how I think the match would go if the two of them went today, with the exception of the 5-knuckle shuffle not being there.
Right.
But I think the move sets would have been the same. I think they still work the same way. I think everything about them, it was then, what was it, 19 years ago?
Yeah.
To right now. And Frankie's still doing it at a high level. You
Absolutely.
know what I mean? A main event status. So it's amazing to see, and to see where they went from there and have two of them, not just one, but to have two of them in the ring facing each other for the basically the first time in New England. What a treat for the fans. That must have been awesome.
Yeah. Kevin, what did you think?
Well, right off the bat, my first thought was that I thought it was extremely interesting that Frankie, who I believe lived out on the West Coast, came here to train with Killer Kowalski, and Cena, who lived here, went to California to train at UPW.
Very true.
That was one of the first things that I thought of. Prototype was definitely the perfect name for Cena. You know, like it looked like he came out of Vince's wet dream. Kazarian, other than the ponytail, has not aged.
It's amazing.
Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, in this match, I think he would be called the past because we're watching it 19 years later as opposed to the future.
Right.
And I thought that Cena did more moves in the opening moments of the match than he did pretty much his entire career in WWE.
I thought so too. Good call. Yep.
And the other takeaway that I had, other than a very, very, very prototype crowd, was Kazarian's hip toss neck breaker.
Yes.
That just looked extremely cool.
Great move. Yeah.
Two great athletes. What a body on Cena at that point. He looked like he just stepped off the pages of Muscle and Fitness.
You're right.
My God,
right.
He looked like something from the back of an old, comic book or something. They made a man out of Mac, the old Charles Atlas.
Yeah, he
stuff.
legitimately looked like he was drawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
If someone was just like, "What does a wrestler look like?" and that's what they would have drawn, and there he was.
What a nice, polite kid too. I mean,
really?
What a gentleman of a kid. Oh yeah. I got to tell you that on that particular night, the show was sponsored by WBCN and Budweiser, who we had as a sponsor because of our relationship with Good Times. So there was a lot of buzz about the show, not just from the Cena family who packed 80 people in there, but there were probably another 150 people in there as well, just because they wanted to be there for the show, because it had been promoted so well between the posters that we had put up and radio spots that we got from Budweiser on WBCN and the radio station's promotion. Don't forget, there had been a documentary about UPW on, I believe it was the Learning Channel, that Cena was heavily featured in. So there was a little bit of a buzz about him already nationally at the time that this match took place. So just to have him for that one night was a great treat. And like I say, he was a gentleman. You could tell this kid was going to be a world champion.
I think he also had a series of how to be a professional wrestler DVDs out around that time as well. It might have been shortly afterwards. Yeah. It was put out by UPW, and I just remember seeing those on the shelves thinking, this is how you do it, huh?
Yeah. I remember not long afterwards, too, he also was a host of a reality show where contestants had to get across an island, and they had the hunters were hunting them down with paintball guns. And this was just right around 9/11. The finale never aired because of 9/11. It was supposed to be that night, and that night or that weekend when it was all coming down, and they bumped it, and so you never got to see the finale in it.
Wow!
But that was the only, and he was with the blonde hair, the prototype, the whole thing, and he called himself the prototype during that. So.
Well, that was certainly an interesting moment in NECW history. One of those things that really was putting our young company on the map at the time. I remember there were some people we were trying to make a deal with TV-wise that were there. So we were doing a lot of things to impress people. We had quite a bit of newspaper coverage at that time. You know, there were always, not always like every month, but always like every couple of months you'd see something in the paper about us, whether it was a listing in like the Improper Bostonian with a picture, or a calendar listing in the Herald or the Globe when they had those. You know, this was back before social media took those things away from newspapers, but we had quite a bit of coverage back then, and that was a boost for our young company at the time. So, and also was one of those things like the early years of NECW, you never know who was going to show up. So whether it's going to be Cena one month, or Kazarian, or Doug Williams, or Sumi Sakai, or whoever it would be, you know, there were exciting times to be an NECW fan. You may not have realized it at the time, but looking back on it years later, what a cast of characters back then in New England Championship Wrestling. So
who's who? Yeah,
exactly. So that brings us to our second match, which is the MAsshole Mike McCarthy, the NECW Television Champion of the time, taking on Todo Loco in a 2 out of 3 falls match at Bash 14. And in this match, the first fall was standard rules. The second fall was, refresh my memory, Kev? Submission match, yes. You can only win by submission. And then the third fall was no rules at all, Loco Rules, which is no rules at all. So this was my favorite match between the two of them. This is an example of how booking benefits talent. What we had done leading up to this match was we had the TV title change hands several times between McCarthy and Todo Loco, with the idea that these two guys are pretty much even in terms of their ability. So who's the better man? Who is going to come out on top in this? And this 2 out of 3 fall match was the rubber match, so to speak. So from there, let's start with you, Joe. What did you think about this?
This was a great concept. I love seeing the different stipulations for each fall. That was really good. And when you started watching, we were taking it right as it began, so no introductions at the time. Mm-hmm. And then, boom, right away, McCarthy gets the first fall, which led to the next one. And with Loco and him, I loved how instead of it being just a regular submission, Loco knocked him out, basically cold-cocked him, and was able to get it that way. And they counted it as a submission. He couldn't answer it, so he was out. There were a couple things that confused me a little bit when he grabbed the ladder and brought it in and then didn't use it at first. Brought it in, set up a few things. I figured he was softening him up to use it, and then he went back to it. But and then the only other thing that worried me was when McCarthy set the table up outside and the legs were crooked. The legs weren't all the way opened up on it, and I got scared. And then I really got scared when Loco went through the table head first. I've never seen that before in my life. I don't know if he was trying to face bump on the table and he was too inverted down. But man, that was scary. You know, hats off to Loco for being a man and taking it the whole way right there. But what I really loved was at the end when they were both selling after Loco won, and they were both lying there in the ring. It was a struggle. It was a fight. It was a competition. Nobody jumped to their feet and started celebrating. It was old school. You see that in New Japan. You saw that when Ric Flair would win. It was a fight, and it was a great competition. The two of them really worked their asses off. It was an awesome match.
And the turn of Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy turning babyface in the middle of that match.
That was right in the middle with Bo. Yeah. And that was the other thing I didn't understand, because I didn't know, I wasn't around at this time, that they were, you kind of mentioned it, that they were best friends. And, you know, Bo trying to help him out and him refusing to take the help. and then you could see him spin right during the match. He wouldn't cheat, wouldn't do it, and that was a great match.
Kevin, you were in the thick of all of this, so you were...
Yes, I was.
Your impressions, your memories.
Well, let me bring it back a little bit before we jump into the match. I will fully admit that the MAsshole was pretty much my muse. Like, I was so inspired by him coming up with all these different potential ideas and things that we did. One of my all-time favorite moments of any of the promos that we did, and it hurts my heart that these could not be used, was during the Brockton Fair. After the matches, Mike and I walked around the fair. Basically, he was trying to win me prizes. We were going on rides. It was some of the most fun, and the files got corrupted, and it could not be used. There was one point where we went to one of the face painting spots because I wanted to get a tattoo just like him, and the whole time I'm paranoid about, is it going to hurt? Is it going to hurt? And instead of a skull, they put like a pink heart. So then I'm walking around the Brockton Fair with this pink heart on the side of my face.
And you're still here to talk about it.
Yep. And it was just so much fun. One of the other things with Mike too is when I first met him, he did not want to do promos. He was putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And then when I finally got him in the room, we just clicked. And it took off from there. So then the next show, as I walked in, the first thing he did when he saw me was he walked over and he says, "When can we go in the room and start shooting?" So from that point on, there was just this... He must have felt incredibly comfortable with me. It just worked out perfectly that we were able to bring out the character that he eventually became. I honestly think that he is someone that should be on TV every single week. His charisma is infectious. Is that polite to say?
Yeah,
say someone's infectious. Okay.
Even in these times.
Yes. The concept of the match, the 2 out of 3 falls, the way the falls were set up, in theory, was to highlight each other's talent, so to speak. So the pinfall would have gone to Todo Loco in theory because of high flyer, ring technician. At the time, McCarthy was using the CTFO, submission chokehold, as his finish. So you would think that the submission would be beneficial to him. And we flipped it. Specifically because that's what most people are going to think going into it. He has a submission finisher. This is going to be a highlight for him. So I thought that was one of the things that was interesting, and I'm almost positive that it was their idea of wanting to change that up specifically to, give credibility to the other guy. McCarthy at the time was a heel, but the fans were definitely behind him, and this match is a perfect highlight of somebody coming out stronger from a loss than they would have done with a win. I got a huge kick out of when McCarthy pulled up the Singapore cane, which I still call it the Singapore cane versus the kendo stick. That's just my preference. When he did the Angus Young dance step, playing the guitar on it. Of course, that move when Todo Loco went head first through the table. You figure I was ring announcing. I was right. Well, I wasn't right there. I was towards the back wall. So I couldn't see how he landed. I just saw him go up, go straight down, and immediately, the panic button start to go off. But then the burst of adrenaline that Todo Loco has at the end of the match, after all of that, just shows how tough that guy is.
Yeah.
And then, as you were saying at the end of the match, both guys, they're bloodied, they're bruised, and it was just a great finish for the two of them, and where both characters were going to end up in NECW.
It's the power of NECW booking in the case of both of those talents. And it's interesting, you touched on it a little bit, Kevin. I want to expand on it. Mike McCarthy is a case a lot like Max Bauer, in that he got himself over organically.
Yes.
It was not something that we had planned or plotted out. It wasn't something that we had, designs on from the very start. We did a show. It was about for the Scouts, Abington.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Right. And that was the first time he worked for us. And he would do this thing in the match where he would say, and now you're going to see a suplex. S-U-P-L-E-X. And I said, all right, that's his gimmick. He spells things. So we just translated that to his promos. And as Kevin said, the two of them just clicked. And he got comfortable with it. And the more you put him on TV, the more over he got. And, he started out as a heel. But what we should have figured on, which we didn't figure on, but it makes complete sense, is that in Massachusetts, a MAsshole is a babyface.
Right.
A MAsshole is not a heel in Massachusetts. Do a show in New Hampshire.
That's a term of endearment.
Exactly. If you take him over the border, it might be a different story. But no, he got himself over completely organically. And I felt that he needed to go on a journey in order to get himself up to the top spot. He had the secondary title, as did Todo Loco, and the idea was to build their credibility in the eyes of the fans so that if anything happened, and we had a history of things happening to our champions. Sean Burke, broken ankle, was out for a while. Wagner Brown wrecked his knee, out for a year. Todo Loco later wrecked his knee, out for 6 or 8 months or whatever it was. So, we'd had a history of having to make championship changes on the fly, or, guys saying, well, I've got other opportunities, I need to go now, and we would have to replace them. And so in order to survive stuff like that, you have to book people to be able to elevate them when the time comes. So the way both of these guys were booked was in a way that you're building their credibility to get up to the top spot if you need to put them there. So in the case of each, both men became NECW champion at different times. And in fact, I guess I can tell the story. McCarthy, after building him up to win the NECW title at Bash 15 a year later, a few months afterwards, the end of that summer, we were doing the Brockton Fair. He comes in, he says, tonight's my last night. After we'd built him up to the title and spent all that time to get him to the point where he was carrying the company, he said, I've got to go, I've got to leave town. Well, a month or so before that, I had gotten a letter from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Apparently, his baby mama was looking for cash and wanted to know how much he was making from NECW and all this. And shortly thereafter, he said, look, I just can't make enough money around here. I got to get the hell out of town. And so that was the end of Mike McCarthy's run in NECW. And it was a heartbreak but again, we had put so much credibility behind Todo Loco that when Todo Loco beat him for the title, you still had a guy on top that had credibility and was in a championship position. So that's what I mean by the power of booking. There's guys who benefit from booking, like McCarthy and Todo Loco, and there's guys who are hurt by booking. I think Brandon Locke, in the history of NECW, we talked about that on a previous episode. Right. How he was put in that spot because he was capable of being in that spot, but he was put in for the wrong reason and put in the wrong way. Or I should say he was put in for the right reason, but put in the wrong way.
Right.
He wasn't prepped for the role in the way that he should have been prepped for the role. And that's
one of the things, too, is without rushing somebody in, you also have to allow the fans to want it. Not that instant gratification, that there is a lot to that long-term booking. Sure. You plan something out. If he instantly went out there and won the title, they might have been happy for the first 2 shows, and then afterwards, well, now what? Right. There is something about that chase. The money's in the chase.
Right. I remember having a discussion with you, Kevin, about putting the title on McCarthy sooner. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to wait until Bash 15 because I knew that would be a big show. I knew that would be the place. 15th anniversary is a milestone, and you want to pass the torch on a milestone like that and build up to that point. And that was the right thing to do. Unfortunately, we had no idea that he was going to become unavailable to us not too far down the road after that. So,
and when he dropped the title, too, that wasn't even the original plan.
Right.
As far as his opponent.
Yep.
That's amazing. See, one of the things that I noticed when you were talking about just how over McCarthy was when he turned babyface during this, a lot of these young wrestlers, these young up-and-comers right now, can take a page out of this and understand that sometimes it's more important to get over than it is to go over. And in a case like this was perfect booking because Todo Loco needed to go over and Mike McCarthy needed to get over, and you accomplished both in this one match. It was awesome, an awesome match.
That's something that I wouldn't have been able to have done 5 or 10 years earlier.
Oh, God, no. I'll tell you that right now. I can tell you right off the bat that would have never been allowed.
Right.
No, your hands would have been tied so tight it wouldn't even have been funny.
Can I tell another McCarthy story that I absolutely love?
Please do.
Please.
All right.
I knew McCarthy back when he first started. So
when he was Tommy Knoxville, or
Tommy Knoxville,
Yes.
That's when I knew him. So to see him come out, when I saw him, I was like, "Who is Mike McCarthy?" I said, "That's Knoxville." And then to watch him, I thought it was a riot. And of course, I've met him since. But so please, all the stories, the better, because I remember back then.
One of the sponsors of the television show was the Chinese food restaurant Hokkaido. Was that the name of it?
Yes.
So they would have karaoke on Thursday nights. So we had an event where several of us went to the restaurant to basically, promote upcoming shows. McCarthy was going to be there. I was there. He was like, we have to sing karaoke if there's karaoke there. So then it's a matter of, okay, well, what song? What are we going to do? So after going over a couple of different ideas, the blatantly obvious answer was right in front of our face, which is Aretha Franklin's Respect. Because our E-S... Exactly. So, we're in Hokkaido, and the woman that's running the karaoke, she calls up, McCarthy. He goes up there and he says, I'm not going to sing until my best friend comes up here with me. Now, at the time, we were doing a gimmick where basically, he was just harassing me constantly, and I absolutely hated it. So, I go walking over, I grab the microphone from the woman, and I'm holding it high enough where people can hear me, but low enough where it looks like I'm not holding it up to my face. And I'm saying to him, why are you doing this to me? You're just trying to embarrass me. I have no interest in being up here right now. This is stupid. I hate this. And in the meantime, the music's playing. So right when the music or the lyrics kick in, I instantly stop my bitching and just start, what you want? And singing and dancing. Now, the whole build-up was to get to RESPECT. That part comes up. He misses his spot. No. And he just looks at me and he goes, I can't believe it. So instead of singing it, he just takes the microphone and says, RESPECT, and hits me into the microphone and just walks off. So then I just sit there. Now, in the meantime, this is a full bar full of people. And everyone's just staring, because at first they
don't know what's going on.
Right. And I just sat there with this heartbroken look on my face, hand the microphone back to the woman, and then just walk back to my seat. So a little bit later on, after a couple of other people have gone up and sang, this one guy comes walking over to me and he goes, hey man, I was really nervous when you were up there, because I just thought that you were going to embarrass yourself. You looked very upset, but then you killed it. And I was like, oh, thanks. And he just walked away.
They serve very strong Mai Tais there.
Apparently so.
Food was good.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. One of my sister's former co-workers ran the karaoke there, and that's how we hooked up with them, and they became a sponsor of the show. So,
well,
that's a riot.
One of the other ideas that we were talking about that we never actually got to do when we were doing, it was with Miss Sammy Lane, Mistress Belmont, and Toxus, where we were teasing that there was some sort of interest that Belmont had in me, and I was super excited about it, and then we switched it where it was Toxus. And some of the things that I wanted to do again at Hokkaido was I wanted to do a double date with me, McCarthy, Belmont, or Sammy, and Toxus, and just the insanity that would have happened with that.
Right.
I eventually wanted to push it towards an accidental proposal into an almost wedding, where just having like the bachelor party. There was so many different plans, and just you can't do everything, but that was some of the fun stuff that was discussed and wanted to do.
That's a riot.
Good times in those years. You missed it, Joe. It was,
I definitely did.
Yeah, we had a blast up at Hokkaido. We would go there once a month, maybe, or just do an appearance there. They would feed us, and
and they put the show on for us.
Yeah, right, and it's right.
Wow.
Thursday, because it was Thursday night, Friday morning, so we'd stay there, and the show would be on TV.
Right,
they play the show,
fantastic.
right? So. Right, we shot a bunch of things there at different times. We also shot some other stuff at the Manhattan Sandwich Company in Marblehead.
I remember seeing the ads for that. Yep.
Right. We did a thing where I'm about to take a bite out of a sandwich and Bo Douglas steals the sandwich from me and takes it right out of my hand. And
that sounds like any Saturday, right?
Right, exactly. Right. Yeah. So we were able to do some cool things with that, and but yeah, I mean, booking is makes or breaks people, and it's so missing today. Today you just see match. Especially a lot of these independent companies, the Beyonds and the Limitless. There's no angles, there's no programs, there's matches, and maybe they tell a story within a match, but they don't string them together to have programs, and people aren't really being built towards anything. I mean, does Beyond Wrestling even have a championship?
Right.
Limitless Wrestling started a championship not that long ago, but they ran for a couple of years without even having a title, so there's like nothing to aspire to.
Right.
There's no place to get to. So, again, booking a very important factor in the history of NECW. We could talk about the history of booking in NECW. We can touch on that for a little bit. Back when we first started, the first booker of New England Championship Wrestling was Scott Dickinson, who really helped me start the company. Scott wanted to step down as booker because he was trying to make a move to California, which he eventually did. So Sonny Goodspeed took his place. Sonny Goodspeed, good guy, but not a good booker. He could put a match together, but he couldn't string the whole thing together. He didn't have a big picture mentality. Kevin Kelly took the book after that. The Kevin Kelly, former WWF announcer, New Japan announcer. Kevin was good. Kevin had a lot of good ideas. Kevin, though, going from WWE or WWF to NECW, big step down. So he really didn't take it seriously. But his ideas were good. Eventually, he left the area, so that was the end of Kevin in NECW. But then Bob Evans took over, and Bob Evans was a disaster. Bob could be good, but Bob just wanted to have fun and push the guys that were in his school because they were all paying him and so forth. And after Bob Evans, I got together with the PWF crew, and it was supposed to be Matt West who was the booker. That was everyone's impression. George Carroll claims that he was the booker for much of that time, that he was really the one putting everything together. And I kind of believe that. I think that Matt was just, he was going to school and he had a job and so forth. So I think Matt was kind of deferring a lot of things to George and just editing what he was doing. So that kind of makes sense. George was both good and bad. George had a lot of good ideas, did a lot of good things, but they tended to be around the top of the card. And the criticism of George from within was that the lower card guys didn't get any attention. Everything was built around, Sabotage and, Nikki Rocks or Tanya Lee or whatever, and the rest of the crew went begging. And there's some truth to that, but His second run as Booker after the split was not very good. He just, just didn't have it together. There were no angles, no programs. He was trying to do a lot. He's a guy who has 6 kids and a job. So, when NECW was at its best in terms of booking was the times that we talked about in a previous episode, Joe, where we sat around your kitchen table,
right,
a group of us, and discussed everything, and everybody had their chance to contribute. That's when it was at its best, because
we built off each other's ideas. And it was so good.
It was good, and that works. And
we went down the card, so like you said, it wasn't top heavy. Everybody had something going on. There was always something for someone.
Right. And not everybody needs an angle or a storyline. Sometimes you put a guy out there just to have a match and to expose that person and to get the people to know who that is so that now you can build something off of that person because the people are familiar with him.
Right.
But, yeah. And so it was 2012 that I started taking the book with Kevin's help. And that run of television was all the 2 of us. So
yeah, bravo.
Yeah,
nice job.
Yeah, and there's people who will tell you that the best years of NECW were the years that we were running the Quincy Armory, and that's true only to a certain point. It's true. The level of talent was better. The top guys were better. There's no denying that. I mean, you get guys like Eddie Edwards, who we'll take a look at very shortly. Elektra Arion, the late D.C. Dillinger, and so forth. Sean Gorman. But if you look at the WMFP years, I don't think you can beat them as far as the booking goes, and as far as building things, and as far as the content that was created. I think that content is far superior, in my opinion, to not that was weak content by any stretch of the imagination, but I think in terms of a promotion and building things up and down and so forth, I think those were the best years of NECW, at least to this point. And
televised years, anyway. Yeah.
Right. I mean, there'll be more in the future, but in terms of this 20-year period, that's my impression of it. But anyway, so we have a bonus match we're going to take you to in just a moment. This is from April 26th of 2008. Diehard Eddie Edwards, who we haven't seen in this series in singles action. We are going to see him in a singles match against the Golden Greek Elektra Arion, who we have seen quite a bit of in this series. And we're going to take a look at a match between the 2 of them. Arion is back in the babyface position. And let's take you to that match right now, and then we'll discuss it on the other side. Time here on NECW TV this week. And what a barn burner of a main event we have. I guess you could call this a revenge match, for lack of a better word. Where you see the entrance video for Sabotage. And that man, Diehard Eddie Edwards, making his way to the ring, along with Sean Gorman. The 2-time defending Iron Age champion, Diehard Eddie Edwards, along with Sean Gorman. And look who's here. D.C. Dillinger, who is sitting in the audience because he is currently on suspension. Dillinger unable to wrestle in NECW. due to the heinous act of him slapping the sister of the Golden Greek Elektra Arion, the newly dubbed Gorgeous Greek, Elektra Arion. Dillinger looking mighty cozy in the front row. I know he paid cash for that ticket. Of course, diehard Eddie Edwards, the odds-on favorite to three-peat in the Iron 8 Championship, the 5th annual Iron 8 Championship. Edwards pulling off the unprecedented feat of winning 2 in a row. All that action, of course, coming up Saturday night, May 31st at the National Guard Armory in Quincy, Massachusetts. And here come the Arions. Elektra Arion, former NECW heavyweight champion. One time one of the most beloved members of the NECW roster. Edwards backing up here. The Dynasty huddling in the corner on the outside. Exercising self-congratulation there by the Dynasty. Rob Tuttle, your referee in this match. The never popular Rob Tuttle. The DC fan club in the house. All right. Elektra Arion trying to explain the lay of the land to his sister, Elektra. Edwards John with the ringside fans here. Edwards trying to get some payback for DC Dillinger on the Golden Greek. Rob Tuttle calls for the bell. We are set for action. Crowd firmly behind the Golden Greek. Collar and elbow tie-up. Stalemate in the middle. You see Elektra Arion watching intently from the outside. Elektra Arion with the side headlock. Edwards trying to power his way out, but Arion hangs on. And now Edwards with a reversal. And Elektra Arion back in control. They're in the corner here. Tuttle calling for the break. Edwards backs up, or so it seems. Yes, he does. You are looking at two of the standard bearers here in New England Championship Wrestling. Elektra Arion, the rugged powerhouse. Unafraid of anything or anyone. Edwards, a finely tuned young machine who is only going to get better with age. Edwards winding up Elektra Arion right here. Alex with a reversal. Edwards may be the younger of the two competitors. Nice back elbow, backs up Arion. Shoulder tackle. Edwards off the ropes, and Arion with a hip toss. Nice arm drag by the Golden Greek. Arion just planted the knee right on the shoulder of diehard Eddie Edwards. Slapping away at Edwards. Edwards powers Arion back to the corner. And Edwards pushes him. Arion pushes back. Big chop by Edwards. Big chop by Arion. A sale on chops in the meat department here at NECW. And Arion reversing Edwards into the corner. Big back body drop sends Edwards to the canvas. Edwards walks into an Arion clothesline and another. Alex Arion with Edwards in the corner pointing to Dillinger. This one's for you, pal. Dillinger none too pleased. Edwards gets body slammed for his trouble. Alex Arion upstairs. Dillinger knows he can't cross that line. Now it's Gorman up top. Arion misses the big splash off the top. And now Edwards has Arion off the ropes. Knee to the midsection sends Arion down to the canvas. I was saying before that while Arion is the elder of the two competitors, diehard Eddie Edwards has had a ton of experience both domestically and overseas. Diehard Eddie Edwards with Alex Arion over the middle rope. Referee Rob Tuttle backing him up. Now it's Gorman trying to get his licks in, but Elektra Arion puts a stop to that. Edwards now. Covers Arion. Only gets 1.5. Arion with a shot to the midsection. Big chop by Arion. Kick to the midsection. Arion just took a shot to the breadbasket that doubled him up. Arion face first into the buckle. Once again, that midsection taking the brunt of the blow. And Edwards driving a knee into the solar plexus. Alex Arion in trouble here. Elektra Arion watching intently. Edwards, what a slam on Arion. Edwards just drilled him in a double stomp right to the stomach. Covered by Edwards. And only 2. Edwards trying to take the breath away from the Golden Greek. And now Edwards locking up the arm and shoulder of Alex Arion. Edwards exerting the pressure. Edwards digging that fist into the rib cage. A rib cage that's already been softened up. Edwards telling Alex Arion to give it up. Arion trying to come up here, making some headway. And a shot to the midsection, and another. Arion powering his way out, and a big chop. Gorman grabs the leg of Alex Arion and sends Edwards over the top. Gorman slowed down the Golden Greek, but Alex Arion used the momentum of Edwards against him. And now it's Arion and Edwards on the outside. Measures Edwards with a big chop. Big shot by Arion. Just a punch in the face. Edwards on the outside in the corner. Dillinger leaning over with words of encouragement, and here comes Arion. Arion giving Dillinger what for. Dillinger jaw-jacking with Alex Arion, and now it's Edwards over the top of Arion. Leapfrog, Edwards catches him, drops him right on the knee. Oh my goodness. Edwards might have broken a rib right there. Alex Arion favoring that midsection. And Edwards with a boot for good measure. Standing on the stomach of the Golden Greek. Arion could have cracked a rib, courtesy of Edwards. Edwards has him up. Slingshots him over that top rope. And once again, the midsection of Alex Arion being worked. Oh man, what a boot to the face. Arion went flying into the guardrail. Working that midsection just takes your breath away. Arion trying to get some breath in him on the floor. Fans urging on the Golden Greek. Now it's Edwards taken off to the outside. Edwards following up on Arion. Edwards, oh man, Edwards just kneed Arion again right in that midsection. Another for good measure. Big chop by Edwards. Arion being rolled in. Edwards actually executing a pretty sound strategy. And now it's Arion with a kick to the midsection. Arion fires away. Edwards off the ropes reversed. Here comes Arion, catches him with a boot. And now Arion. Oh man, Arion jumped up off that middle rope and Edwards caught him in midair with a drop kick. A cover right here. And only two. Edwards is so quick. Edwards nailed Arion in midair with a drop kick. And that's why diehard Eddie Edwards is a two-time Iron 8 champion. Again, the midsection of Arion being worked on. Abdominal stretch right here. This puts pressure on that midsection, on that rib cage. Properly applied, this is a submission hold. Arion out and tosses Edwards over the top. Alex Arion, one of the most rugged competitors in the history of New England Championship Wrestling. Arion has taken a ton of punishment in this match and yet has hung in there with the two-time Iron 8 champion. Gorman calling for a timeout as Edwards being counted down on the outside. Tunnel up to 7. Edwards has 3 more to get in. And Edwards up. Wait a minute. Tuttle broke the count trying to give Edwards a break right here. Edwards up top now. Arion follows him in. Edwards about to go for the ride, and down. Big chop by Arion. Edwards in the corner now. Arion follows him in. Whip to the opposite side. Big back body drop. Edwards goes flying. Edwards off the ropes, reverses. Oh, headbutt. And Edwards upstairs. Arion drills him with a spine buster and a cover by Arion. Only 2. What a battle here between Edwards and Arion. Arion follows him in. Oh, man. Rob Tuttle got nailed. And Edwards with a clothesline. Tuttle down on the outside. No referee. And now the Dynasty does its best work. Edwards calling for a chair. Here comes Gorman. Elektra Arion inside now. Gorman has that chair. Oh, Elektra with a spear. Elektra speared Gorman, and Elektra going to town on the mouthpiece of the East. Edwards has Elektra Arion by the hair. Oh, Edwards saying, you remember this. Edwards misses the slap, and Arion with a super kick. Covered by Arion, but no referee to count. Wait a minute, here comes Tuttle. And only 2. Edwards almost pinned by Alex Arion. Dillinger up on his feet outside. Elektra chasing Gorman around the ring. They head to the back. Arion John with Dillinger. Dillinger can't do anything. Edwards. Kick to the midsection. Edwards has him up. Drops him. And a cover. And Edwards with the victory. Edwards with a big victory over the Golden Creek Alex Arion as he heads to the 5th annual Iron 8 Championship. Comrades in arms right there. Edwards and Dillinger. Obviously a running buddy of Edwards and Dillinger right there. Die-hard Eddie Edwards. Undeniably one of the great ones here in New England Championship Wrestling. You may not like his tactics. You may not like the company he keeps. But he is a blue chip athlete all the way. And speaking of blue chip athletes, Alex Arion finally coming to his feet. Alex Arion favoring that rib cage. Dillinger John away. Dillinger telling everyone he's the man. He's a spectator is what he is.
So take your ass to the back as you walk.
Dillinger giving Arion what for here.
You lost. You're a coward. Go home.
Dillinger calling Arion a coward. Alex Arion trying to walk away here. And and the fans voiced their disapproval of DC Dillinger. Wait a minute, Arion coming over now. Arion going after Dillinger. And Arion brings Dillinger into the ringside area. Arion backing up Dillinger. Big chop by Arion. Arion going crazy on DC Dillinger. Chair to the back. Dillinger getting plowed by Arion. Arion tosses Dillinger in the ring. And Arion has Dillinger. Arion tearing the clothes off of DC Dillinger. Arion going nuts on DC. Dillinger losing his pants right here. Alex Arion beating the pants, literally, off of DC Dillinger. Dillinger and his skivvies crawling around on the outside. Dillinger sent packing by the Golden Creek. Alex Arion pleases the crowd by sending DC Dillinger home in his unmentionables. Alex Arion loses the battle, but maybe wins the battle. And we've got more NECW TV coming up right after this. All right. Well, Joe, you were around for this because you're actually seen at the very end of the match, standing in the background. So,
absolutely, I remember that.
your thoughts about this?
This, you know what? It's just it's one of those things. DC had been suspended for slapping Alex's sister, Elektra, and so he was at ringside. He was sitting there, and being as only DC can be. He'd give an aspirin a headache. He was fantastic. And then you got Alex working his thing. You got Gorman working his stuff. Everybody worked their positions in there. I mean, what can't you say about Eddie Edwards, right? This entire series, this whole 20-year series that you've put together and with the matches and all, have shown stars that have come in and out of NECW internationally, through the country, all over. Out of every single one of them, Eddie Edwards is the biggest homegrown star from the area itself that was diehard NECW. He came through the ranks, just dominated the promotion. And look where he is now. The kid is unbelievable. And to see where he's gotten himself now, what a showcase for him and Alex. The two of them, just the work rate's unreal. To see the two of them, the hard hitting chops, the everything, they laid it in on each other, and they enjoyed it. You could tell.
Yep.
And then right down to where he gets the win, he takes off. DC's still running his mouth. Arion goes out and grabs him, and that's when we all ran over. We were gonna do we break it up, and then we're like, you know what? Let him go, and then we let them go to the point where DC is running around in his skivvies, like you said, and bailing out of there. It was hilarious, but boy, he got his comeuppance right then and there, and it was a fantastic match to showcase. Not only Eddie Edwards, but Alex Arion, DC, and Gorman, of course, taking the spear from Elektra was dynamite. What a great shot! He really made it look like she knocked him out of his socks. It was awesome.
I loved how he was holding the chair too.
Yes, yes,
upside down, and it was just perfect.
It was perfect.
I mean, he is definitely the MVP of not just the series. But I would say of early NECW or all of NECW, he was just just fantastic.
That's true.
Hasn't
You can't
been
argue it.
anyone since that can do what he's done.
Right.
So until that day comes, he's the measuring stick of where anybody who wants to be a manager, you're going to sit down and watch his tapes and sit back and go, can I even attempt it?
Well, there's a reason. There's a reason why I don't manage in NECW. There's a reason why I do the backstage interviews. You know, like how can you follow that?
It's very difficult.
Kevin, your thoughts about the match itself?
All right. So my very first thought, speaking of Gorman, is a white coat and a red shirt just looks classy. You know, that was one of the first things that I thought of. Like Joe was saying, you know, the way that they were laying the shots in the chops, I popped for the sale on chops. Chops in the meat department. Yes. I did pop for that.
It was great.
I will fully admit that while watching this, I forgot I was supposed to be taking notes and analyzing it, and I was just watching it. For that to happen, you know, it just speaks volumes of the talent of the guys in the ring, because I was a fan. You know, I was just taking it all in and enjoying it. I was really amazed when Eddie caught Alex in mid leapfrog in the fireman carry. It was just so smooth when he caught him. And then having DC out there, the whole time I'm like, oh, here he comes. No, he's hopping that. No, okay. Oh no, here he comes now. Like, I'm waiting for him to hop the rail to do something, and it wasn't until the end. And to make it even better, from what Joe was just saying, so all the shenanigans that happened at the end of that match, none of that was discussed ahead of time. Like, you guys weren't smartened up to that at all. That was all on the fly. Am I understanding that correctly?
I think so.
For the most part, they kind of worked it out amongst themselves, because we went to split them up, and I got grabbed. There were only a couple people that were clued in, and this was in my early stages of NECW. I had only been there a short time by then. So for them to grab me and say, hold it, let them do their thing. And so we backed off a little bit, let them have their time.
Okay.
And okay, now so we weren't that smartened up to what they were about to do. Once I saw the shirt get ripped off, I knew where they were going with it. I'm like, he might as well be wearing a tuxedo at this point. So then we were able to let it just play out.
Because just then I was like, oh, how great is that if that was just all spur of the moment? It's like, yep, here goes the shirt, there goes the pants. But in my head, I'm going to say that that's the way it was, that there was all improv and...
Great showcase for Sabotage in that matchup. And Eddie Edwards, bell to bell, you're not going to find better.
To this day, you're not going to find better. He's unbelievable.
That's why he's a 4-time world champion.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And that's why it's great that there's more eyes going on Impact now.
Yes.
Right. I sure hope he ends up on AEW. You know, I sure hope he gets that spotlight, because he deserves it. Like I say, he didn't need NECW by this point. He had already been going to Japan. You know, he didn't need to be there. He was very loyal to NECW. I'll always be grateful for it. Of anyone who's ever wrestled for the company, boy, it's hard athletically to top him. Arion comes really close. I think if Arion had a longer career, if he were able to, you know, progress a little bit more in terms of doing other stuff, I think Arion would have blossomed like Edwards did. He's the greatest individual wrestler ever to come out of New England, in my estimation.
Yeah, and that's what made Sabotage great too, though, because you figure Eddie's, you know, ring technician, amazing, bar none, probably, as you were saying, the best to come out of New England. But then what he maybe wasn't as strong as far as, like, maybe cutting promos. He had Gorman right there. Right. Charisma. He had DC right there. You know, so it was all three of them just, you know, they were like Voltron. They just sort of built this.
That's it.
This perfect.
Collectively.
Yes.
They were a perfect package. They had everything that they needed to make each one shine. Individually,
they were great.
Yep.
Put together, perfect.
Unstoppable.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yep. And look at where he is now. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, the gimmick that he's doing now, where he's a little off center and kind of out there and a little more hardcore, than he normally had been, has built up from what's happened to him over the last few years, which makes sense in the natural progression of him going a little bit off the edge. But boy, when he turns it up in that ring, you still see Eddie Edwards, diehard, the way we remember him in NECW, and when he was with the Wolves and everything else beyond us, and then in Noah. And I mean, come on, the guy is probably move for move, pound for pound, one of the top guys in the world. Technically wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
No argument there. That was an excellent bonus match for this week. We'll come up with something else for next week, I'm sure. Some tasty surprise from the NECW archives. Stuff that we're watching this week. I forgot to mention this last week. I don't know if either one of you have Amazon Prime, but
no.
There is a documentary on Amazon Prime, a film about Sweet Daddy Siki, who was a wrestler from the 50s. He wrestled through the 70s. Sweet Daddy Siki was a black man who eventually dyed his afro blonde and was a very charismatic, great wrestler, settled in Canada. And his story is amazing. If you get a chance to see this, go out of your way to see it. It's a film that was done for a Canadian television. It's on Amazon Prime. If you're an Amazon Prime member, it's free. It's a great, great documentary. This guy had a hell of a life. Everything from being a pro wrestler to being a country western singer to being a trainer of wrestlers. This guy had an amazing, amazing life. And I'm so glad that my friend Greg Oliver, who runs the Slam Wrestling website, he wrote this documentary. And I'm so glad that this got put to film, because a lot of these legends, if you don't get them on tape, they're gone forever. The story of Sweet Daddy Siki is amazing. I won't give it away here, but it's well worth going out of your way to see. I'm telling you that if you have Amazon Prime, if you have some way to access it, go out of your way to see it. It's tremendous. What are you guys watching this week? Or what have you watched this week?
I think must-see TV was Tuesday night with Impact. There was no getting around that. I think I don't think I'm going to have any pushback on that one.
Right.
I know that Impact had been taped beforehand, but like we all know, anybody that does anything for television usually have spots that you're going to drop things into anyway. So there's always spots to fill things in and put things in with. I liked how they had the bus, well, what did Kenny call it? The Lex Express, which I thought was hilarious. They threw some good shots, boy, back and forth over towards Connecticut, which was hilarious. But I love how they drove that in, had that parked outside the arena. Just great placement of everything, how they did it. And I knew they were going to go all the way to the end of the night before we got anything out of it. But the build-up, Tommy Dreamer acting like he didn't know what was going on and was going after Scott D'Amore, and the build-up was fantastic. I loved it. Then when we
paid
finally
announcement
got
between Tony Schiavone and Tony
that
Khan.
was my favorite. That
old
was my favorite
school
part of the whole show.
Mid-South NWA, the backdrop, everything about that was awesome. I loved how Tony wasn't mad and upset. He just kind of made it look like, this is how I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get myself over, get my company over, and I'm not gonna, and the little innuendo that he threw that there's a rumor out there that I might buy Impact. I went, oh, now we're getting good. This is getting intriguing now. And then you bring it all the way to the end with Kenny and Callis sitting in there with Josh, and they're doing the interview and they're building it up. That's the most charisma I've seen out of Kenny Omega ever. And he's always been known for his in-ring talent. His promos have always been kind of dry and just kind of, little to be desired. I don't know if it's Callis that brings this out of him or is leading him into what he needs to. He's definitely tapping into something with Kenny Omega for the first time I've seen. And now you've got the sizzle with the steak starting to develop,
and believability.
That's what it is, and now he's drawing you in.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Those who haven't seen what Kenny can do, look at his stuff that he's done with Okada, and the stuff that he's done in Japan is off the hook, right? But if you didn't get a chance to see any of that, you know what I mean. You're only seeing Kenny for what he's done the last year on AEW.
But one of the big things is you may not have seen it, but you've heard about it, and that's what the gimmick is basically all about. He's just taking all the things that people have been saying about him for the past, 3, 4, 5 years, and now just expanding on it into his personality. And
that's
again, everything he says is believable. The 7-star matches.
That was perfect.
Right.
7 stars.
But with that paid spot, my favorite line is when Tony Khan looked at Shivani and said, "You were in TNA, weren't you?" He says, "Yeah, for one night, and I left the business for 18 years."
18 years. But what's funny is you look at how Shivani said that, right? And the two of them got that little dig in and over, right? And they did it so smooth. And then you casual. And then you look at Callis, and Callis is throwing shade, calling you're just going to go back to Stanford, you're a stooge, It was totally different. One was a dig, the other was meant to be funny and just smooth and just go, just right through. But that's Tony. He's so dry anyway, which made it so well. It's so good.
Let me ask your opinion on this then. So then the following night on Dynamite, they come out and then they pretty much do the exact same promo verbatim.
I caught that. I did catch that. Now, here's my take on that, because I caught that immediately and I went, here we go again. That's all we're going to get. And then I thought about it. Access TV is only available in so many areas. Right. And there's only so much that people are going to be able to catch on YouTube and all that. And I think that they'd chop up so much of what happened. I think they were just reiterating a little bit more about what it was. They were trying to hit the key points of what they wanted. So for them to repeat it, it had to mean something. There's more in that than what it's just what they're saying. I think there's a very important piece to what's going on that they made that such a big deal to repeat.
I think there's many, many, many layers to that. One of them getting Don Callis over with the AEW fans that might not know who he is.
Right.
As you were saying, going over the background as far as, the history between the two of them. But yeah, I think that there's a little bit more to it than just the repetitiveness. So I'm curious. I was saying this the other day that I am actually excited about watching wrestling again. Because it's been so monotonous for such a long time.
I haven't been this interested in something that's going on to make sure I'm gonna watch it since the NWO started. That's how it, for me anyway. Then it was must see. I'm like, I got to watch what's going to happen next. What the hell are they going to do next?
Right.
And they didn't give it all away about what their plans are and what they plan on doing. But they gave you just enough. When he was talking about collecting and starting to collect things, and the AAA belt that I have, I could consider that issue number 1 of X-Men comics. And what's number 1 of Spider-Man? Could it be Impact? I mean, we don't know. I'm here, and I'm going. He's going to start collecting championships.
Yeah, right. And he did throw a dig at Rich Swann.
He did.
He did,
which was
very casual again.
But the dream matches that could come up. So I like Rich Swann, very charismatic, great wrestler, excellent worker. But I'm not invested in watching Rich Swann face Kenny Omega. I'll tell you, there's 2 guys I am. Eddie Edwards, because I think that would just be a Matt classic, and Sami Callihan, because I think that different style will bring out something in Kenny he hasn't had yet, and styles make fights anyway, and I think that would be huge. And there's 3 people that probably took Moxley out before the contract signing with him. If you remember on AEW, the week before the match, they were supposed to do the contract signing, and Moxley was laid out back. There was a bat on the ground. Okay.
Yeah. Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns. obvious.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But there's only 3 people. There's only 3 people that are carrying bats that they show all the time. One's Jericho, right? He's been carrying, what's he call it, Floyd. The other one is Sting, who just showed up, but he wasn't there that week, but he's got a bat. And then you got Sami Callihan.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
So
Did not even think of that.
we've got some things that are going on here that when you can start putting the pieces together, when they start connecting these dots, we haven't even brought the NWA into this yet.
Right.
What about Nick Aldis facing Kenny Omega?
There you go.
What a match!
Mm-hmm.
This is and again, I'm speculating. We're all speculating, but isn't that the fun part of this whole thing?
Oh yeah,
Right.
Finally,
right.
we can have some fun with this.
It's a breath of fresh air for pro wrestling.
It really is. And you know what's crazy? They're doing it during a pandemic.
Yes.
Imagine if they did this with 17, 18, 20,000 people in the stands.
Oh,
Would you imagine?
People would be beating the doors down to come in.
It's going to be unbelievable when they come back.
Yeah, and I think that it's interesting. I wonder if they sit around and say to themselves, God, man, if we could only sell 20,000 tickets to this, we'd be in business.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
But they'll get there. They'll get there.
Oh, yeah.
No question.
And when they're ready to, it'll be a stadium.
Mm-hmm.
When they're ready to, it'll be 100,000 person stadium. Because I got a feeling this could be a super card with people from multiple promotions working together.
And a pay-per-view like you wouldn't believe, at a $50 price.
And not just working together for the better of professional
the business.
wrestling.
Right.
Yes. Not just themselves, not just each promotion. Look, I could see Kenny Omega being the next quote-unquote Ric Flair that goes around to these different territories with that world championship, and their top guys are going after his belt. Just like Flair used to do. And it would sell out.
Right.
You know? I just...
And you know what the best part about that is? It's old school traditional storytelling.
Exactly.
That's it.
You know, that just shows that it works.
Sure does. It sure does.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but I have noticed that on AEW, they've toned down the comedy quite a bit over the last couple of weeks.
Yep.
The comedy has definitely been toned down, which is what they should be doing.
Absolutely. It has its place, and it was getting a little much. Right. And now they've started to, because there's more of a serious tone right now to what's going on. Well, the entertainment part is the wrestling. That is the entertainment part.
Right. As our good friend Jim Cornette would say, funny don't draw money.
That's right. Exactly.
There's room for it on a card, but in the right spot.
In the right spot.
Right.
You know?
Right. But I think that's what's needed to build a fan base, because I love the comedy stuff. So you put that on the show, I'm going to enjoy that. You have other people who are, strict hardcore technical wrestling fans. You have people who are hardcore wrestling fans. You have people who love, lucha libre. You have people who love strong style. So when you start to incorporate everything, your fan base just continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Right.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. And a little bit for everybody.
Yep.
Wrestling needs this. Wrestling definitely needs this. It's been a long time coming. The total audience for pro wrestling has been eroding for a long time on television. And it needs something like this to bring it back. And I'm glad to see it. I really am glad to see it.
And somebody was asking me the other day, they said, well, why would Tony Khan do this with Impact? What does he get to gain out of this? Tony has the biggest platform that anybody would want to be on. Tony is the guy holding all the cards right now. So it only makes sense for people to want to work with Tony. And for Tony, right now, there's nothing more. He's basically picked dry because we don't have independent shows going on like we used to. He's picked all the best out of the groups that he can find that anybody knew about. The only other thing you can do, the only thing he's going to get out of this is the ability to bring different talent to his show. It's a win-win for everybody.
Right. Isn't Impact Wrestling, their audience for Tuesday night went up like 10 times?
It did. It was amazing.
10 times.
10 times.
Yeah. It just goes to
Just
show
having
you.
a champion show up.
It goes to show you the more they do this and the more they create this intrigue, that snowball rolling down the hill is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So.
And what's going to happen is the guys at Access TV are going to encourage this working together thing because it's working.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's going to generate a lot of money.
Absolutely.
All around.
For everybody.
For everybody involved. Yep.
I mean, don't forget that AEW, Impact, NWA, they all live in the shadow of the 800-pound gorilla known as WWE.
Yes.
And the only way to really best them, and it's not even about besting them, but the only way to get significant market share is to band together and compete. To give people something that's so compelling, they've got to tune in to see it. Doesn't mean that they won't watch WWE, because it's not an either-or situation, especially in this age of the DVR and so forth.
Right.
But, you know, I think when WCW went down, it was the worst day ever for pro wrestling.
I agree.
Yes.
To have a major company owned by a big corporation in Time Warner say, we don't want anything to do with the wrestling business, that was a dark day for our industry. You know, I thought when WWE went public that was one of the great days in wrestling history, because there was still a WCW, there was still an ECW, there was still other viable products in the marketplace. But, you know, since WCW disappeared, that really hasn't been the case. You really can't say that TNA is a serious contender. You can't say Ring of Honor is a serious contender. They're not. So, hopefully this is going to be a shot of adrenaline for pro wrestling.
You know what? With TNA, the closest thing they were the closest thing to being any type of competition. I think when they shot themselves in the foot is when they went head to head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they were pulling 2.5 million viewers an episode.
Right.
So, I mean, you'd kill for those numbers right now.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But I think going head to head against them was suicide.
Right.
And the management there, obviously, and it's well documented that the management at that time really didn't know what the hell they were doing.
It was foolish and arrogant.
Absolutely, that's what it was. They got real arrogant, thinking that they were going to be able to take on the big dog.
Right.
Instead of drawing people and leaving the room, there was no need for another Monday Night War. There's no need now. I hope when this thing takes off, they never go near Monday nights.
Right.
Leave Monday nights alone, because that's just, there's no need to try to take them out. Let them survive with doing what they do. Right. There's room for everybody in this. Look, there's still Thursday nights are way open.
That's right.
They're still available. There's plenty of room and plenty of you know, Vince only put NXT on Wednesday nights so that AEW wouldn't go unopposed. He didn't care if they beat them. He just didn't want them going unopposed.
No, I think they tried to stop it before it took off.
Right.
They did. But you know, I mean, why Vince has the ability to do it, and look at what was he going to lose in that? He's got his developmental group up against AEW's flagship, right?
So and don't forget they're getting paid additional money for putting NXT on
exactly.
USA.
So it was win-win for him. If he beats AEW, he can look and start laughing, going, "That's my third brand. Those are my rookies coming up. I haven't even really placed them yet." And if he loses and he's getting beaten, he can go, "There's still my developmental team, and they're still taking away, 800,000 people watching." So
and those in the cable universe are still respectable numbers.
Especially that night for that time,
right?
And the demographics. So healthy business right now.
All right, well, good food for thought right there. Anyway, next week on the Regeneration Podcast, we're going to look at the final two matches in the NECW 20th Anniversary Collection. We're going to be looking at Claudio Castagnoli taking on Pepper Parks, a.k.a., in today's world, Cesaro taking on the Blade.
Amazing that those two that long ago.
And we'll also be looking at the Portuguese Princess Ariel teaming with Miss Sammy Lane as they take on the team of Ivy and Mercedes, better known to you folks today as Sasha Banks, in her very first professional wrestling match. So we're going to look at that. We'll have another great bonus match for you next week. And that's going to do it for us. So for Joe Matarazzo and Kevin Castro, I'm Sheldon Goldberg. Thanks again for listening, everyone. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.
The Regeneration Podcast is a production of New England Championship Wrestling. To send us questions, comments, or feedback, email us at regenerationnecw@gmail.com.